dad grew up in Louisiana, and one of the things he loved was a good boxing match. He was a pastor, but on Saturdays he loved to watch boxing on TV. Kind of oxymoron, but it kind of worked for us. And so he would get my brother and I to watch boxing, and he'd give us a play-by-play on it. But one of the earliest boxing matches I remember us watching a replay on was Roberto Duran and Sugar Ray Leonard Part 2. Any of y'all old enough to know who I'm talking about? There's a few people in the room. I first heard us knew them all, right? So this was November of 1980. Some of you don't even know what decade that was, so it's fine. But in November of 1980, we didn't have pay-per-view or anything, but you got to watch ABC's Wide World of Sports about a week later. They would show you what happened. Right? You didn't have the internet to even know sometimes, but this was an amazing fight. You know, it might help me share this story since so many of you weren't around back then. I might need a Roberto Duran. I want to be Sugar Ray today. Sugar Ray Leonard. I like to get Sugar Ray, right? Why don't we have Justin come on? Welcome, Justin, as he comes on. All right, you know, about 24 hours before a boxing match, they have a little press conference. And what do they normally do at that press conference? They got the weigh-in, right? I want you to look at your neighbor and give them the best weigh-in stare down that you can give right now, okay? I don't think y'all are committed yet. Hey, how are you? Well, Roberto had an awesome stare down. See, Roberto grew up in Panama, and by this time in his boxing career, he had boxed over 100 matches, and he had knocked out 70 of the guys. You brought a glove. This is going to get serious. Okay. So, he knocked out over 70 of his opponents. In fact, when he grew up in Panama as a 14-year-old, some buddies bet him that he couldn't knock a horse out in one punch, and he punched the horse and knocked it out. It was called Hands of Stone. So we're not talking about a boxer who just decided he would take a 12-week course and then go boxing, right? This guy, given his life to it, pound for pound, he's often in the top 5, top 10 boxers of all time. But this particular fight was the fight that he became known for the rest of his career, the rest of his life, really. And so they had a fight in May of that year. Yeah, he was there. Look at you. You're Michael Jackson anyway. All right. So, we're about to have a fight, but I'm not ready yet. So I got to talk a little bit more and set this up, right? So Roberto earlier in May had the first round of fights with Sugar Ray, and it was 15 rounds, toe to toe. See, Roberto didn't like to dance around. He didn't do a whole lot, but he would use that power punch to knock the guy out. And Sugar Ray was more like a Muhammad Ali. He was floating like a butterfly, stinging like a bee, a little jab here, a little jab there. But in that first match, for those 15 rounds, Sugar Ray tried to go toe-to-toe with Duran. But it didn't work out too well. He went 15 rounds, he lost by unanimous decision, and he wanted a rematch. So he had been training for 6 months, and this was his chance. And it was obvious that Sugar Ray spent those 6 months to get an optimal physical position. So this time, instead of boxing Duran toe-to-toe, as Duran was kind of slowly moving around the ring, Sugar Ray started doing all kinds of dancing, and as the fight unfolded, he kept dancing and kept moving around. Never get, that was really close, right? What you doing? That's a body shot. You didn't get any of those, right? I'm going to knock you out. Hey, here's the thing about Justin. He and I have some sport background here when it comes to playing against each other. I'm always the guy that ends up with the injury when that happens. So I've had bruised ribs, I've had a broken finger, I don't need. Yeah, that's just basketball, right? I need to go to the other sport. All right, so he was dancing around. Sugar Ray was taunting Roberto Duran all through the early rounds. First round, second round, third round. Duran was getting so angry, he just wanted him to stand still so he could just punch him one good time. Well, the fight kept going. By the 6th round, Duran was standing there trying to figure out what to do, and Sugar Ray got so cocky about what he was doing that he bolo punched him. A bolo punch is where you take your arm and you swing it on like this, and he gave a jab to the other. And so he was just making it a carnival. We get to the 7th round. We get late in the 8th round of a 15-round fight. 30 seconds left. Duran's been chasing him around the ring, trying to figure out what he's going to do. And he turns to the referee, and he says, "No mas." In Spanish, that meant no more. He had quit the fight in the middle of the 8th round. Let me get Justin a hand. Give him a hand. He quit the fight, though he had not been beaten up, though the corner wasn't telling him, throw in the towel, you're not going to make it, this is inevitable, you're beat. He threw in the towel and said, no mas, and he walked away from the ring. I had the title, the message this morning. It's a phrase that my dad would often say, often when I had something I didn't really want to do. But I have recordings of him even saying it, and this is the phrase he would use. It's always too soon to quit. It's always too soon to quit. That's a phrase I always just say. His subtitle, never quit on a bad day. Never quit on a bad day. There's an epidemic in our culture today where people are just getting fed up with life, they're getting fed up with their work, they're getting fed up with school, whatever it is, their family, and they're just quitting on life. During the epidemic that we went through this 5 years ago, as we shut everything down, we had the new phrase was ghosting, where people wouldn't show up to work online or in person, or they would just miss appointments and they were just ghosting people, right? Well, the new phrase in the last 2 or 3 years, after people have kind of shown up back to work, is quiet quitting. You've all heard that? Sociologists are studying it. But what they're finding is that people are showing back up to life, but they're just showing up to do the minimum, and they're not really engaged in what's going on. Now, you and I are never going to survive the life that God wants and thrive in the life that God wants if we're living a quiet quitting kind of life. It's always too soon to quit. Now, think about this problem. It's not a new problem. It's been a problem since the fall of humankind. People have been quitting all kinds of things, but when I think about main figures in the Bible that might help us with this, as we're talking about staying in the fight to the end, I can't think of a better character who even used boxing as an analogy in the New Testament than the Apostle Paul. I mean, think about the Apostle Paul. Have you ever considered he actually had so many bad things happen to him in his career of boxing or whatever you want to call it, that in one of his letters he just starts outlining how many bad things have happened to him. But he still, at the end of his life, was following to the end. So let's just recount some of the things that he wrote of himself as we think about this. 5 different times the Jewish leaders whipped him. 3 times he was beaten with rods. Once he was stoned, not at the dispensary. 3 times he was shipwrecked. Once he spent a whole night, a day adrift at the sea. He traveled long journeys, faced dangers from rivers and from robbers. He faced dangers from his own people as well as the Gentiles. He faced dangers in the city, in the desert, on the seas. He worked hard and long, enduring many sleepless nights, was hungry, thirsty, often without food. He shivered in the cold, didn't have enough clothing to even keep him warm. And I just have to tell you that Paul was a boxer who fought to the final round. See, when you have that list, you can think, well, all that happened in a short amount of time, but Paul went on missionary journeys for a good 20 years of ministry. And we're going to look at a passage today that he wrote to the church in Galatia. It's in Galatians chapter 6 is where we're headed if you want to turn in the Bible. But we're going to look at a passage where he wrote this letter early in his missionary journeys before he had gone through the later rounds of what happened. But over and over again, when you check in with Paul, he starts out by saying, don't give up. You're going to reap if you faint not, right? Don't give up. There's a prize at the end. Halfway through, he said, I've run the race. And then at the end, he said, I've finished the course, right? Over and over again, he had opportunity to say, I'm tapping out. It's the 8th round. There's 40 seconds left. The enemy's not fighting fair. I don't feel good. I'm being embarrassed. I'm going to give up on life. But Paul said, the message that I carry, the transformational power of God that's in me, is not something that I want to waste and leave 7 rounds on the table. I'm going to do all 15 rounds. So how many of you are in for 15 rounds today? Again, I'm not going to do a 15-point message. You're okay. But we are going to enjoy learning how to stay in the fight this morning. The key verse today, if you don't remember any of the other verses I shared, I want you to go into Galatians. I want you to read it. It's 6 short chapters. So we're going to do 9 verses today that I think are going to unpack 5 steps that are going to help us stay in the fight even when things aren't going well. In verse 9 it says this, so let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. So that's our key verse. At just the right time, we're going to reap a harvest if we don't give up. It's always too soon to quit. So Paul wrote this, as I said, early in his missionary journey. He wrote this when he had only experienced one beating and one stoning at that point. But we can look and see, as I said, all the way through the career that he had as a missionary, as an apostle, as someone who was shaping the theology that you and I have today. He never gave up, even when the worst of things were happening to him. It's interesting as you look at the book of Galatians, in the first 4 chapters, he talks a lot about justification by faith. He's giving you a theological framework for life, and how you are saved just through the justification by grace and faith. And so you have that part, and then in the 5th chapter, he starts talking about the fruit of the Spirit, how the Holy Spirit partners with us and develops the fruit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, all those good things. And in 6, he starts talking about not getting weary with doing the right thing over and over again. And so that's where we're finding ourselves in 6. In chapter 6, we're going to work through these 5 areas that I want to talk about, but I need you to help me in this. So I'm going to help you, just like Justin helped me, I want you to help me. So here in a moment, after I finish the point and I go to the next point, I want you to do something for me. When I ring this bell, I've got a boxing bell up here, I want you to stand up, I want you to do some shadow boxing, show me your best boxing moves, and I want you to yell, I'm ready to fight, okay? Now, 9 o'clock did this. I know you're going to do better than them. I challenged them, and they went above and beyond, right? But I am ready to fight. Are you ready to fight? Just don't come up and fight me. Obviously, I'm going to win. So here we go. We're going to test this to see if y'all are awake this morning. So you ready? What are you going to do? When I hit the bell, you're going to stand up, do some shadow boxing, I'm ready to fight. Ready? All right, here we go. That's pretty good. Look at your neighbor and say, I'm ready to fight. All right, we're going to try that again. Sit down. I'm going to keep you moving today. All right, let's try that again one more time. I don't think you're ready to fight yet. Some of you are ready to fight on Memorial Day. Come on, you got tomorrow off. Let's put some energy in it. You ready? All right. You're ready. All right, hey, let's give a shout out to our A5 this morning. They are sitting in service today. That's our 5th grade ministry over there. You guys are awesome. Thanks y'all for hanging with me. Just don't fight each other over there while we're talking, all right? Here we go. Hey, so here we are. Let's start with the first one. If you want to finish the fight, you forgot what we're doing. Come on. All right. You have to lead with humility. Lead with humility. I'm going to look at 2 verses from those 9 that we're looking at. I've changed the color of the words I want you to really focus on. I'm going to read the verses. Dear brothers and sisters, if another believer is overcome by some sin, you are God that you gently and humbly help that person back onto the right path. And be careful not to fall into the same temptation yourself. And the 3rd verse says, if you think you are too important to help someone, you're only fooling yourself. You're not that important. Paul telling us we're not that important. I don't know about you, but if you've watched any boxing, when they get to the weigh-in, when they have their press conferences, those guys think they're all that in a bag of chips when they're talking, right? They stare down, they talk about what they're going to do to the other guy, they are super supreme, confident, they think it's all about them, the preparation they've made, and what they're going to do to the other guy. But I'm here to tell you, it's not about you. You have to lead with humility. The whole reason you are where you are is the first 4 chapters of Galatians where it talks about justification by faith. It's not in the good things that you've done that have placed you in the fight that you're in. It's in the good things that God has done for you and offered to you, and He's given you an opportunity to share what He's given you with others. So when you get around other people and they're struggling and they're fighting for their life, one of the best things you can do is not tell them how secure and how powerful you are in the way that you're living. You can get on their level, and you can get in the fight with them, and you can lead with humility. You see, if you'll lead with humility, if you'll stay connected to the people that are around you, you're going to be able to finish the fight, because it really leads us to the second point. And I think you know what's going to happen right here. All right, I don't see everybody committed. Come on, I need full commitment. We got it. All right. The second point, if you're going to lead with humility, you got to live in community. Live in community. That verse again. You'll see I changed the words I want to work out. Dear brothers and sisters, if another believer is overcome by a sin, you who are godly should gently and humbly help that person back onto the right path. And then the second verse says, bear each other's burdens, and in this way you obey the law of Christ. Now, boxers have an entourage, right? When they travel, they've got their cornerman, they've got a cut guy, they've got their trainer. Rocky even had Paulie, right? I don't know what Paulie did in all those days. He got to stay in the corner, right? But they have people that are in the corner, so every 3 minutes when the fight's not going well, they can get encouragement, they can get fueled up, they can get what they need to go back out and fight 3 more minutes. The problem that Roberto Duran had when he was in that fight is he quit listening to his corner. In fact, the corner had no interest in throwing the fight. There was still a lot of fight to be done. But halfway through, 30 seconds left in the round, Roberto Duran got out there in the middle of the ring by himself, got frustrated with what was going on, and he quit because he was out there alone and not listening to his corner. You and I were built for community. Now, we want you to come to church. In a service like this, you're getting to sit in rows, you're getting to greet people for a couple of minutes, you may even shadow box with somebody today. But that's not going to be the level of community that you're going to need to finish the fight that God's put in front of you. You're going to have to live in community. And some of y'all think that we have these announcements, we talk about brotherhood and sisterhood, and we're just filling the calendar so we all have a good job, right? It isn't about whether we have a good job or not. It's about providing opportunity for community to take place in a place where believers are getting together and they're taking off the mask that sometimes we walk into a Sunday morning with so that we can be real, so that we can help one another in the things that we're struggling with, so we can stay in the fight. So I'm so proud of this church. On Mondays, we have care groups for so many life-controlling issues, and none of us are immune. As we said, we have to have humility because none of us are immune to being in one of those groups at some point in our life. But for the grace of God. And we have opportunities here for people to be in your corner. And I just want to encourage you, as you read and you see these verses today, I encourage you, get in a position where you're known and you know others, and when life's not going well on your worst day, you have some people that you can call. One of the most lonely places to be in life is when you're having your worst day, and you don't even know who you can call and be honest with. And so my hope for you, and this is something we press in Growth Track, we take part in 201, we give a 30-minute window to this, because we're committed to creating community around here. You have to live in community where you can know and be known. People are praying for you and with you, and you're able to put them in and do what they're going to do. Because you're going to grow faster, you're going to go farther when you're in community. You have to lead with humility. You have to live in community. You guys ready for the third one? I don't know if you're ready. All right. You're still ready to fight. Third thing I would say is you're in for the full fight, you have to take responsibility. That doesn't sound like a good point, but it's an important point. Read verse 4. Pay careful attention to your own words, for then you'll be able to get the satisfaction of a job well done. You won't need to compare yourself to anyone else, for we are each responsible for our own conduct. At some point, we often get in situations that are brought about because of our own personal choices. We like to blame the devil, right? We like to blame circumstances outside of our control sometimes. We want to put the blame somewhere else, blame shift. But often I find some of the worst decisions and worst situations I found myself in are simply because I made a very bad decision and I didn't do something about it. Can I get an amen? Okay, we're good. All right. We have to take personal responsibility. Duran, when they were trying to get him to talk about his fight, why he quit in the 8th round. I mean, this was a world champion in 4 weight classes or more. He had fought 100 fights. Why did he quit in the middle of it? And he started blame shifting. He started complaining that he was having cramps because what had happened is he had not trained the same way for this fight. He was overweight before the weigh-in, and so he cut weight as much as he could. And when he came back to fight the next day, he started having stomach cramps. So he wanted to blame his physical conditioning. He wanted to blame Sugar Ray for not fighting the right time to fight. He wanted Sugar Ray to stand so he could knock his head off, right? But Sugar Ray was smart enough to say, you beat me that way one time, but you're not going to beat me a second time. you and I are really good at playing the hands lower now and blaming everybody but ourselves sometimes in the situations that we find ourselves in. We're often no better in our real-world situations than he is. If you want to have life change, if you want to be able to fight to the next round, if you want to make it to the next battle, take responsibility for where you are and trust God to help you as you live in community, you walk hungry, and see what God can do to bring you to the. All right, we're going to go to number 4. Everybody ready? All right. Don't lose the enthusiasm, folks. The later rounds and the more important rounds. Here we go. All right, train for the fight. Train for the fight. We're leading with humility. We're living in community. What was the third thing I said? I've already forgotten. I need to bring my own medicine. I got to take responsibility for that. And I'm going to train for the fight. Let's go for verses 7 and 8. Don't be misled. You cannot mock the justice of God. You always harvest what you plant. Those who live only to satisfy their own sinful nature will harvest decay and death from the sinful nature, but those who live to please the Spirit will harvest everlasting life from the Spirit. Duran, since his first fight in May to November, had not trained the way he fought before May. He had put on weight. He had changed his training regimen. When he came to the end and got ready to fight, he was not in the optimal state that he needed to be in to even put up with the fight, even though Sugar Ray had changed even the way he was fighting. So you and I have an opportunity every day to be in training with Jesus. God has given us an opportunity to communicate with Him. We believe one of the core values we have, one of the things that we think is the promise of God, is that we can know God. We have a God who is interested in our life. We don't just want to check in with Him on a Sunday or a Saturday when we come to service, but we have a God who's in dialogue with us. He's a good Father. He's an awesome trainer. He can give you names for yourself that you don't even see in yourself. But you just give Him the opportunity to speak into your life. We're training every day. I was so encouraged this last Wednesday night. We've had an end-of-the-year pin celebration. Those of you who haven't come on Wednesday, we have an opportunity throughout the year from August to May. Our elementary students are in a discipleship program where they can earn pins. They have a stash that they have, and it's like Disney pins kind of stuff. And this last Wednesday, we had over 50 of them come on the stage from both campuses, Rose and South. They came into the adult class, and they started quoting scriptures that they had memorized last year. Two students even quoted the whole chapter of 1 Corinthians 13. And we had a student stand up, and they actually went verbatim through the 16 statements of faith that we have in the church from memory. And I just want to tell you, in a moment like that, you start seeing the training that's happening. When third grade are going on missions, when they're already being trained what it's like to go and see another context of life where there's under-resourced people and there's opportunities to serve. You are training them so when they get to the later rounds of their life that they're going to be ready to fight. So I just encourage you. You have an opportunity every week. You're coming in. You're going to Bible engagement. You're coming to the Sunday classes we offer. You're doing group life. You're coming on Monday, Tuesday Bible study. All of those things are building the stamina, the discipline, the connectivity, just the stick-to-itness that you're going to stay in the fight so that when you get in the 8th round, you're going to be able to fight all the way to the belt so you can go back and get re-encouraged by the people in the corner. Be ready to fight by staying in the training. You know, the opposite is true as well. What we sow, we reap. We know that. That's a principle we see in nature. We see that if you're agricultural, you know that. But the opposite is true. If we're sowing to the flesh, if we're spending our time doing things that are really disintegrating who we are as a person, there's a day where we just have to pray for the grace of God to cover those mistakes that we've made. And God will do that. He'll be faithful to some of that. But we can avoid all that if we will train for the fight. Because we have an enemy. This sounds like a fun and games. It's not just all about your decisions. We have an enemy. The Bible tells us he's roaring like a lion, seeking who he may devour. And you and I have an opportunity to be prepared to raise up a statement through the help of God, to raise up a standard against him. And I know you want that for your families. I know you want that for the next generation. That's why I love this church multi-generational, because we are are raising up a generation that will easily surpass what we do because they are getting trained for the fight. And the way we train here is by serving neighbors and neighbors, and you guys have captured that and you're going with it. So in the 8th round, there's no big deal, right? I'm 90 days from Marilyn getting married. That's our youngest. That's exciting. It's exciting, right? So the problem is, I know that they take a lot of pictures that like 50 years from now people will be looking at, right? And I'm not a weight that I want to be in 90 days, right? So here's the deal. What I do between now and then is going to have a great impact on what I look like in that picture in 90 days, right? It didn't help that I went to Andy's on Friday. And I get a witness altar. It didn't help. Hey, but here's the deal. If I choose to sit that and I get to day 85 and I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to eat for 5 days. That way I may look better in the picture. It doesn't work that way, right? There's no shortcut microwave to being trained for a fight, any more than it was for Roberto or decided to leave on that way to make weight. So I just want to encourage you. It's in the day. We're in the summer, and some people say the summer, we'll see you in the fall. We're just going to kind of go away from doing what you do. That's fine. Go on vacations, do all those things. But do not check out on where you're going spiritually with you and your family. You'll come back with more trouble than you left with if you don't. And that's not something that's to scare you, it's just something to inspire you. The life we all want is on the other side of it. Discipline is a good thing if it's used for the right purpose. And we have an opportunity. And it shouldn't be a burden. We have an opportunity. If you just wait long enough, if you don't get weary in well doing, as he says in verse 9, we'll reap the benefit, the harvest of what we're doing. And if you live long enough as a Christian, you see the results of the seeds that you sow. And God is faithful with that. So let's stay ready for the fight. So we've trained for the fight. We're now to the 5th round. This is going to be the last one we end on. Are you ready? One more time. Are you ready? All right. I saw some more energy on that. I saw some good punches over there. 5th point. Fight to the end. Fight to the end. So let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we'll reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. It's interesting that Roberto Duran in that 8th round, he thought that the round was hopeless. He thought that the fight was over. He wasn't interested in fighting anymore. He was so frustrated with Sugar Ray that he wouldn't fight a fight. But when you went to the judges' cards after the fight, 2 of the judges only had him behind by 2 rounds, and the 3rd judge only had him behind by 1 round, even with all the theatrics that were happening in the fight. There were 7 more rounds that Roberto Duran had an opportunity to win that knockout punches in his name for. And he chose to leave the energy, the skill, the ability he had on the mat and walk away and say, no more. Now, I know you want a 15-round life when it comes to your spiritual walk. We have an opportunity to leave it all on the mat. We only get one shot at this life. And we don't want to top out. We don't want to say in the 8th round with 30 seconds left, I don't want to fight anymore. It's too hard. Things are getting too difficult. I don't know if I have the answer for this anymore. The enemy's not fighting fair. I've got more trouble than I want. And so I'm just going to quit on that. I just want to encourage you this morning. I came to tell you this morning, it's always too soon to quit. There's more in you. There's 7 more rounds. There's a bell that's going to ring. It's going to give you a break. You're going to be in community. You're going to have an opportunity to hear from God. You're going to be retooled as you go forward. And you're going to have an opportunity to overcome. I think of the characters in the Bible, Abraham and Sarah, holding on to a promise. They couldn't quit, but they held on, and we're a result of that lineage that comes down from that. What about Moses and the Israelites waiting for deliverance? We've got Gideon and the Midianites, who was outnumbered 300 to 100,000. David in the conflict with Saul, Esther where the people were about to be wiped out, Daniel in the lion's den, Peter with his inconsistency of even being able to say that he knew who Jesus was. All of them had an opportunity to say, it's the 8th round, there's 30 seconds left. I quit. But I'm thankful that the Bible reports that none of them did that. That they were ready to fight. That they were ready to say there's something on the other side of what looks like failure. And I trust that God has something in store beyond what I see in front of me. I'm going to be faithful. I'm going to be disciplined. I'm going to live in community. I'm going to walk humbly. I'm going to save for the fight. I'm going to fight to the end. I'm not naive to know that here in the room, there are some of you that have conversations about quitting even this week. You want to quit on your job. Maybe it's your family. Maybe it's a marriage relationship that's gone bad. There's a parenting issue that you can't get over. You can't figure out. Maybe it's a career choice or a career path through a relational tie-up that you can't figure out. Finances that are wrecking you, and you just want to throw up your hands and just say, whatever happens. But there's something more to life than just quitting. Always too soon to quit. Maybe it's a health issue. Causing you to have fear and anxiousness, and you just want to give up. You don't want to fight it anymore. So I'm here to tell you, with God's help, you can be ready to fight all the way to the final battle. I recognize in a room like this, for some of you, you're hearing this and you're like, I don't even understand what you're talking about, being a Christ follower and the Holy Spirit and being led by the Spirit and having the Spirit and righteousness and all that stuff. If something's drawing you to church today and something may be stirring in you where you're like, I need what he's talking about, but I don't know what it is. But today could be a day where you say, I'm going to get to fight a different way. I'm going to get a new tone in my life. I'm going to surrender my life. The only person who can really help me fight all the way to the end is Jesus Christ. So let's all stand. We're close to the end now. Let's stand. I want to give an opportunity for you. Maybe you're in that category of sin. You never really understood what it meant to be a Christ follower, to be a disciple of Christ. I believe that we can start today for you if you're willing to do that. But I also know there are people in the room who are in positions where they're needing to really get a second win. They're about to quit on something they're going to quit on. And I want to give you an opportunity this time. So let's just bow our heads. I'm not going to embarrass anybody. I'm not here to try to create anything other than help for you as we do this. Let's bow our heads. If either of those categories fit you, I just want you to be honest with me and raise your hand so I can know who to pray for. Would you raise your hand if you're at a point of quitting or something? And you think God is speaking. So, Lord, I just need you. You see the hands that are destroyed. Lord, who needs your presence right now to make it happen. And I pray God that you strengthen my leaders. They lead into you as they take this message. Thank you that you are moving with what is needed through the comfort of the Holy Spirit. And I pray you give them opportunities to make the next steps as they will look at your promise so that they can fight this fight all the way to the end. So Lord, I pray that you give us opportunities to come alongside of what we have to do this week. Lord, for those that are new and trying to figure out what it is